So this session would also be recorded so that a link to today's session can be shared. And if you missed any information, you can always go back to it. So firstly, if you can see my screen, this is Slido. So if you can take a picture of this with your phone, it takes you directly to the website, or in your URL, just type in slido.com. Okay, so Slido is going to collate all of the many questions you have so that we'll be able to address them. Okay, I see people are still joining. Okay, please, all your responses should go through Slido. That way we'll be able to share the screen. Okay. So if you've been able to join Slido, slido.com, the pin on my screen, let's see the responses that have come in so far. Okay, so which city are you joining us from? You know, it's a global village right now, and it's an online program. I see participants typing. Okay, so Lagos, Toronto, Manitoba, even some places I'm not sure I know about. I see Waco, Tunis, Lagos. Okay, repping Lagos. Nice. Okay, people are from Texas, Sarnia. Okay, more people are still typing. Rep your city. Let's know where you're joining from. Debo and Femi, where are you guys joining from? I'm joining from Hamilton. Hamilton is very close to Toronto in Canada. Debo, where are you joining from?
Yeah, I'm joining from Calgary, Canada.
Okay, Femi, where are you joining from?
I'm also joining from Calgary, Canada.
Okay, so wow, Calgary's, Lagos, Edmonton have it. Where are my Toronto people? Where are you guys? Toronto. Rep your city. We have this very tiny Toronto here. Okay, I see some people putting in numbers. Are there cities with numbers? I'm not so sure. Okay, we're going to come back to this. Okay, so let's go to our next question just before we start. Okay, the Manitoba still. I see a lot of people are also, checking in from Manitoba. Nice. So let's move on. So this is another question that you can see via Slido. Without using the title of your job, tell us what you do. So what do you do? Very short. Okay, I see you're typing. And those that are typing in the chat are not left out. So in the chat, I see a couple of responses. United Kingdom, Mississauga, Abuja. Okay, it's easier to type in your responses via Slido so that way we're able to see it in one screen. Okay, so baking, really nice. I wish that person was my friend. That way I'll get to have, cakes and, other baked food. Okay, we have students, HR, we test logical controls, system analysts, provide assistance to taxpayers virtually. Wow, I see there's someone that's like a network admin in the house, configures a WAN network, customer onboarding, child and youth support worker. Fantastic. I see that we have diverse skill sets in here today. I'm also keeping an eye on the chats as well, just to make sure I'm not missing out anyone. Okay, there's someone that's already in GRC. Fantastic. Okay, so without further ado, we're just going to move on and we're going to start this session. Okay, by way of introduction, my name is Fala Adegoke. I'm the founder of Winfinite Consulting. I also work as a senior manager at Technology Controls Testing in one of the organizations. I've been within the cybersecurity and IT audit space for over 12 years. And with me today, I have, some of my friends / ex-colleagues. We have Debo Adeoti. So Debo, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, my name is Debo Adeoti out of Calgary, Canada. I'm a security engineering manager, and I have been in security, I don't know, a couple of years, probably over 10 years, across Nigeria and right into this place. So it's good to meet all of you.
Thanks, Debo. Femi, over to you.
So my name is Femi Ogunyaki. I've been in the cybersecurity space for about 8 to 10 years now. I'm lead governance, security governance, risk and compliance in my company. And yeah, so nice to meet all of you.
Okay. Today's call, what are we going to be talking about? We're going to be talking about cybersecurity. So, cybersecurity is a buzzword right now. Everybody wants to transition into cybersecurity, but they're not sure how to start or the different roles or skill sets they require, or even the career pathways in cybersecurity. So firstly, what is cybersecurity? So cybersecurity refers to the tools, processes, people that are used to protect sensitive information, systems, network, applications from malicious attacks. Okay, so when you talk about cybersecurity, it's really big and it encompasses, a whole lot. So under cybersecurity, you have application security, network security, system development, and so much more. So because today it's a panel discussion, I'm going to pass it again to Femi and Debo. I'm going to start with Femi. So Femi, what do you want to tell us today about cybersecurity?
So Shade, you are spot on. Cybersecurity consists of the tools, the processes, the people. Actually, the people are also very, very important. That you put all these components together to protect your data as well as your network. Data is very, very important to companies, to organizations, and a company is as strong as its data, right? And it's very, very important for organizations to actually have good components in place. And referring to the technology, the people, as well as the processes in place to be able to protect their data, right? And of course, to guide against data breaches and all that. And that is what's birthed cybersecurity.
Thanks for sharing, Femi. Debo?
And for me, I would say cybersecurity is not only a technical space. So when people hear about cybersecurity, you think about, technical, but no, the business is actively involved in cybersecurity. The leadership is very interested in cybersecurity. It is a core risk area at the leadership and at the board level, and it affects, the balance sheet. It affects the boards. So cybersecurity is not only a technical risk, but it is a business risk. Over to you, Shadi.
Okay. So with increased use of technology, we all know that technology keeps evolving. You have AI, you have robots, you have all sorts out there. So with increased use of technology, organizations, are increasingly exposed to more risks. Now, one of the top risks facing organizations right now is cybersecurity. And due to cyber crimes, a lot of organizations have lost, a lot of money so far.
So let me even add to that, right? It's well known now that cybersecurity is one of the reasons why many companies will probably not be able to achieve their goals and objectives for the year, right? Like Debo said, cyber risk is also a business risk, and companies really need to now start looking into it more deeply to ensure that they have good controls in place, they have good processes in place to actually manage their cyber risk. Because if you don't do that, a single breach alone could actually bring a company down. A single breach alone could actually make a company lose its competitive advantage, right? So in order for you to be up there and to ensure that you can actually protect your business and all that, companies need to ensure that they manage their cyber risk more efficiently, and they should ensure that they have good controls in place to actually fight cyber crimes and all that.
Thank you, Femi. And every year, cyber attacks, become more sophisticated. So for organizations, what this means is they also need to up their game with respect to fighting or preventing, cyber attacks. Okay, so moving on, we're going to be talking about cybersecurity domains. So cybersecurity is one big space that encompasses a whole lot. Now, as per best practice, there's so many domains, but today we'll be talking specifically about these 8 as specified by ISC squared. Okay, so the first one we're going to talk about is security and risk management. So security ties back to how you want to secure your systems, how you want to secure your data, confidential data, customer data. how you want to comply with regulatory requirements around security. So for a lot of organizations, irrespective of the location, they need to comply to certain security regulatory requirements. You have GDPR, you have the New York Cybersecurity Program, you have so many out there. And then you have risk management. So risk is very important because it helps organizations to prioritize. It helps them identify the high risk, high impact areas. Resources are limited. Time is also limited. An organization has hundreds of applications on the internet or even within the intranet. So how do they know where to focus, their attention, where to put in more money, where to concentrate on? And that is where risk management comes into play. So in here, you're going to be looking at information security. How do you keep the confidentiality, integrity, availability of information? How do you keep it secure? And when you look at risk management, you need to, first of all, identify your assets. What are your digital assets? What risks are they facing? What are the inherent risks that can occur? A good example is unauthorized access to systems where they can steal confidential data, which can result to a lot of negative impact to the organization. And then you assess your risk. What is the impact? If this happens, what's going to happen to the organization? You might lose your operating license. You might be sued. You might have penalty fines. Imagine an organization, falls victim to a ransomware attack. What it means is the files, the data will be locked such that customers cannot have access. And the company might be forced to pay a ransom. This has happened so many times. It happened in the US, about 2 years ago, Colonial Pipeline. So organizations are very big on security risk management. That is the governance part of cybersecurity. So again, I'm going to pass it to, my speakers. So Femi, what do you want to add to this?
So Shadi, you spot on. You actually captured it very well. So security, like I said, security is more or less like ensuring that you have good controls in place to protect your data, right? So you have your IT assets in place. I don't want to talk much about the asset because we're still going to discuss that under the asset security part. But the truth is, you have your assets. Your asset consists of your data, the personnel, your technology, even your business strategy and all that. All this put together actually defines an organization. Now, the security comes in place because you don't want this valuable information to fall into the hands of the wrong people, right? You want to ensure that what you call your asset is actually very well secured, right? So that's where security comes in there. Security ensures that what you have in place or the data you have in place doesn't fall into the hands of the wrong person, right? You want to ensure that only the right set of people actually have the right access to your data, have the right access to your technology, have the right access to your information, right? So security management, is kind of encompassing, making sure that, you put structures in place, you put processes in place, you have your technology in place to actually protect your data, right? Protect your information, making sure that what shouldn't leak to the public doesn't leak to the public. And even within your organization, security also means that who shouldn't have access to your data doesn't have access to your data. For instance, I'm in security, I shouldn't have access to HR information, right? I shouldn't be able to see the salary of my colleagues and all that. So while you're practicing security, you look at it externally, you also have to look at it internally as well, making sure that who shouldn't have access doesn't have access, and who shouldn't connect to your network doesn't connect to your network, right? And the risk management part, what exactly is risk? Risk is more or less like what can stop you from achieving your objective. That's a risk, right? What can stop you from actually achieving that goal that you set for yourself, right? So in terms of security, your risk means, okay, how would I put this now? In terms of security, your risk is more or less like that which is probably going to stop your asset from, you being unable to actually achieve your objectives for the organization. You need to be able to manage your risk appropriately. And how do you manage your risk? You manage your risk by actually, identifying the risk in the first place. You need to ensure that you understand the risk that are inherent within your organization. When you do that, then you also have to start looking at what other controls do you have in place to actually mitigate those risks, which is very, very important. That's your risk management. Identifying your risk, assessing your risk, evaluating your risk, and of course, coming up with appropriate risk treatment plans to be able to mitigate those risks that doesn't fall, within the risk appetite of the organization. And that's what I have to say to this.
Thanks, Femi. And at the end of that, you're going to have a residual risk. So in as much as you want to identify your risk, assess it, put in controls in place to prevent those risks from occurring, at the end of the day, you're going to be left with a residual risk, right? So residual risk is the leftover risk after you must have implemented your controls. Okay. And then we're going to talk about asset security really quick. So again, for organizations, they have digital assets. They have their servers, their applications. All the applications have underlying infrastructure, the operating system, the databases, the network devices. Now, for an organization to effectively protect their assets, for starters, they must be able to identify all the assets. In your home, imagine you're trying to protect something, but you don't even know it exists. If you don't know that it exists, then it's really hard or difficult to protect that asset. So asset security speaks to all the different policies, processes, tools, people put in place to ensure that assets of an organization are adequately secure. So when you're talking about asset security, you'll be looking at your asset inventory. Do you have a CMDB tool in place? Do you scan your network to be able to identify the active devices at a point in time? Your laptops that your employees use, all of that are part of the assets. Who owns those assets? Are they tagged? I'm sure when you join the organization, you were given a laptop. That laptop is going to have a tag, a specific number, and that would be entered into your assets inventory. So Fala owns this laptop. It was given to Fala on so date. What is the asset tag? Femi, want to chip in?
So yeah, sure. With respect to asset security, like you said, Shadi, so the first thing when it comes to asset security is for you to be able to identify your assets, right? Like Shadi said, you need to have what we call asset inventory. So asset inventory is more or less like a basket of all your assets, right? Looking at, okay, what are the various applications you have within your organization? What are the various network devices you have within your organization? All your assets, all those things that are actually used to drive the business comes in as an asset, right? Then the next thing you want to do is to classify your asset. Asset classification is very, very important, right? Because, so of course, when you classify your asset, what you are doing is, what are the various assets that are very, very critical to the organization, right? Maybe your core banking application, maybe your HR application, maybe your IAM application, and all those other things. The various applications that you use to drive the critical part of your business or of the organization would definitely be classified probably as confidential or restricted and all that. Anyways, what I'm trying to say here is when you identify all your assets, you have to classify your asset. Then the next question is, why are you classifying your asset? You classify your asset because you need to be able to apply the right set of controls against your asset, right? Or probably to protect your asset, right? You do not have to, you can't afford to apply the same set of controls on all your assets, right? So for instance, an asset that you use to probably maybe log your staff out of the building. No, I mean, how to clock in and clock out, right? That kind of asset is not going to be as critical as the asset that you use to drive your financial transactions, right? If you understand what I mean. So that means if I'm going to now start applying my security controls, if I want to now start deploying tools, implementing controls here and there, my focus will be on those assets that kind of drives my business strategy compared to assets that actually, they're just there. They're not really doing much, but they're still part of the business, but they're not as critical as those other assets that kind of protect or kind of drive the confidential and restricted information of the organization. So when you classify your asset, the next thing is asset protection, right? Now that's where you start putting controls in place. Okay, I have my asset now. I've been able to identify the critical assets to the business. What do I want to do next? Now this kind of asset, you probably want to put them in a different network zone, within your network. You probably want to segment them out. You probably want to tell yourself, oh, this kind of asset, I don't want to expose them to the internet because they kind of process sensitive and confidential information, right? So I don't want to expose them to the internet. I need to protect this asset more critically compared to other assets that you've not been able to with less priority, right? If I can use the word, right, with less priority, with less priority and all that. That's where asset security comes in. But what exactly are your assets, right? So when you talk about your asset, you're talking about your data, you're talking about your network devices, even your staff are your assets, and you're supposed to protect them as well. In fact, your staff are actually your most important asset within the organization. You really have to protect them as well. Your devices, your system facilities, all this stuff that you kind of use, all these components that you kind of put together to drive your business fall under the word asset, and they need to be appropriately classified and protected. Thank you, Charlotte.
Thanks, Femi. So under asset security, just to recap, you have your asset identification, you have your classification. Your classification would help you determine, priority in terms of recovery. If imagine there's an earthquake and you need to recover all your applications, how do you know the mission critical applications, right? And then it talks basically about the entire life cycle of your assets, from when you onboard them into your organization, in case it gets stolen, up until the end of life of that asset, ensuring that security is a key part of it, ensuring that all the data that are stored in those assets are wiped off securely, at the end of the life of that asset. So asset security is really huge, but high level, that is what it means. Okay, and then I'm going to pass it on to Debo to talk about security architecture and engineering.
Yeah, thanks, Fala. So when it comes to security architecture and engineering, security architecture are all the components that focus on building a secure environment. And what do I mean by that? It is ensuring that, assets are in the right locations, data is in the right place, people are in the right place, identities are in the right place. Think about it like you are building a structure, and as an architect, you want to make sure that you want to maintain its fidelity, to make sure that every single part and every single function works together and does not break the security. So, for example, you have a server, right, and it's somewhere, and all of a sudden you want to expose that server to the internet. Maybe you want to have an internet banking service. All the while you had banking, and your banking was just internal. People walk into the bank, to do the typical transactional banking. But now you want to expose your banking to the internet, to make it accessible on the phone. You are changing the security architecture of that banking application. So you need a security architect to say, hey, if you want to expose your banking application to the internet, this is how to do it securely. These are the zones that should be exposed. This is the kind of protocols that should be used. This is the type of services that should be used. This is the type of error management that should be used, right? That is where the security architect comes in, tells you that, hey, based on what you want to do, this is the impact on the current security architecture, and this is what you need to do to make sure that we maintain a secure posture. And when you talk about security engineering, it's the same thing. Now, I'm sure a couple of times you'll have heard things about security being built in and not bolted on. When you say you're building security into an environment, it means with your design, with your builds, right? Security is already in there. So to make sure that it is built in from the start. So when I talk about security engineering, these are all the technical processes that ensures that your product or your service is secure going outward. I will talk more about it down the line, but security architecture and engineering is very focused on products and services. It is very focused on, changes to the environment or to the architecture of an environment. For security architecture, a few things you will do. You do a threat modeling. What is a threat modeling? You want to see, what can my attackers see? Where are my security boundaries, right? Can an attacker cross this boundary? Right? Okay, if an attacker can cross this boundary, what can I do to stop an attacker? Those are called, you're doing a threat modeling, right? You define security boundaries, you review architecture diagrams. You would also review, sequence diagrams, like A goes to B, B goes to C, C comes back to A. What happens? It's a little bit complex, but it's also a very essential function within security architecture. Right? When it comes to security engineering, these are the guys that come in and say, hey, okay, we have defined this product. We have defined internet banking. Internet banking now has to be internet facing. Okay, I am a security developer under engineering. How do I write the code to make sure internet banking is secure? I am a network architect under security engineering. How do I build a network to make sure it is secure? I am an incident response analyst under engineering. How do I get my logs to make sure it is secure? That is where the engineering piece comes in. The engineers build the structure that supports your product, that maintains the security architecture. So that is how it works. I know it feels a little complex, but I think somewhere down the line, I will break it down for you to just make you understand that, security architecture and engineering is a core piece of cybersecurity and all the domains. I don't know if Shadi or Femi wants to add on to that.
I'm just going to simplify it a little bit. So basically, security architecture and engineering, this is where you're looking at the security design. So when you're building applications, security has to be a core factor. Security should never be an add-on thought, meaning you're done building the application and then you're like, oh, we forgot about security, and then you add it on, right? So that's basically what this is talking about. And then you have communications and network security. So this speaks to, how devices speak to each other, your protocols, your transmission, data transmission. Okay, so now I'm going to pass it, but Debo and Femi, let's sort of simplify things a little bit.
Okay, sorry, I'm a sort of a technical guy. I work in the security architecture and engineering space, so
let's sort of simply.
I'll talk about communications and network security. I see that from the start, there was an SD1 network engineer present, so I think he would understand this. But just to break it down, right? For example, in your house, you might have internet coming into your house, right? And you have, let's say MTN gives you their MTN modem, or let's say wherever you are, you have Rogers, you have that modem. That in your house grants you some communication to the outside world, grants you some access to the outside world. Even for organizations, right? Remember that your Rogers Wi-Fi or to that your MTN Wi-Fi, your laptop is connected, your phone is connected, your TV is connected, your child's iPad is connected. Same also in an organization, right? Their core banking application is connected. Their HR systems are connected. So the question for communications and network security is, how do we make all these devices that connect to our network, right, secure? How do we build a secure network? And when you think about, people say networking, and that's why I started from the home. There is networking at home. You have your phone, you are hotspotting somebody, right? You go to the airport, you're at MMIA, or you're at YYC or YYZ, right, or YEG, and they are connecting to the hotspot at the airport. How are you making that secure, right? But those are the thoughts, and those are the strategies that go into communications and network security, right? How is the network built to make sure access is what is required, to protect the most critical, to exclude the violent and the malicious, and to manage the folks that are just in between, right? So that is what network communications, and security is all about in a nutshell, not going too technical.
Okay, I will further simplify that again. So basically, you're trying to browse, you're on Amazon's website or Netflix website. Now, I'm sure when you look at your URL, the left side, you see that padlock sign, right? So that is saying that that website is secure. What it means is there is a secure channel. Once you put in your login details and you click enter, when that information is being transmitted from your laptop over the internet to that vendor's website, all of that is done in a secure channel. That is why it is HTTPS and not HTTP. So basically, you're making sure that whenever you're transmitting data, whenever your devices are speaking to each other, right, all of that is done securely. Femi, do you want to add to that?
I mean, Shade, you spot on. That was what I was actually trying to. That's what I plan to say. Actually, making sure that when you want to browse, that padlock is very, very important, especially when you're using like your Google Chrome. So when you put in like a URL www.google.com and you press enter, then you see that padlock, right? That padlock definitely is telling you that everything you do henceforth is encrypted, right? As your traffic being sent from your web browser to the web server is encrypted. Hopefully, there's not going to be what we call man in the middle attack. We'll talk about that later. But what that means is you can actually rely on it. I don't want to go to technical, start talking about digital certificates, but what that means is traffic from your web browser all the way to web browser. I'm referring to your Google Chrome that you guys are used to, all the way to the owner of the website, right? Traffic from there onward is actually encrypted, and you can be sure that no one is actually eavesdropping. All things being equal, you can be sure that nobody's eavesdropping or stealing your data, as it were.
Okay, and just to explain, encryption is basically you changing your data from plain text into something that is not readable, right? So that way malicious attackers, man in the middle, are unable to take that information. And even if they do, they still need to decrypt it to be able to use that information. Okay, and next we have identity and access management. Now, this is one fantastic area I love in cybersecurity. So everything we do as individuals, as employees of an organization, identity and access management is key. Identity speaks to what is your identity. To the computer doesn't know me as Shadi. The computer probably knows my username and is able to relate that with my name. So everyone has an identity on the system. Now, when you join a new organization, you're granted access into their network. They'll create you on the Active Directory. And then they would give you a username as well as an email address. So on that organization's network, your identity is your domain username and your email. Before you can gain access into any application, they need to create you on that application and then grant you a particular access that limits what you can do on the system. For example, if you work in HR, you should only have access to the HR module of that application. You have no business with, the financial module. So when you're looking at identity and access management, you're also looking at your authentication. You have your single factor authentication, which is your username and password. You have your 2FA, which is your password, and then something else on top of that. Maybe your PIN, or maybe from a token, right? And then you have the third one, the 3FA, or the multi-factor authentication. So you have the password, your PIN, and then on top of that, maybe you need to do a biometric device. So you have what you know, what you have, and who you are. So that's what makes up, the multi-factor authentication. So this is really key for every organization. Any organization you work for, identity and access management is key. It's also key for regulatory requirements, security compliance. So as long as you're in the security world, identity and access management, privileged access management, these are concepts that you need to understand. Okay, Femi, want to chip in?
Okay, so thank you, Shadi. So IAM as a domain, why exactly are we treating this? Well, why is it so important to an organization? I could remember back then, when I joined my first company, and we had to start. They had to create me on different applications, right? It got to a point that I was unable to manage my password, and I started writing my password down. And I'm sure many people here know that that's a very bad security practice, right? When you have to start putting your password down. But what really happened is because there was no proper IAM solution in place to help me to manage my identity, right? So they had to create different identities for me on different application systems that I needed to access, right? Now it became very stressful for me to be able to remember my username and password on every application system that I'm supposed to have access to, right? And that was what birthed the IAM. So what is IAM? IAM as a domain is actually where you kind of, well, IAM actually helps you to have what we call a digital identity, right? So when you're in your organization, an identity will be assigned to you, right? Just to what's called a digital identity, right? And with the IAM tool, what it does is with that digital identity, you'll be able to access every resource you are supposed to have access to, right? What it does is there's an identity for you, right? Password will be assigned to it, right? Then that means if you need to access all of the resources within the organization, without identity, you'll be able to access all the resources that the company has authorized you to have access to, right? So in my company now, my identity is my username, right? That's my user ID that they've created for me, right? Let's assume it's Femi Ogunyakin. That's my identity. With that identity, I can actually log into different application systems that I'm supposed to have access to. I can actually do what I'm supposed to do on other application system without actually having to remember so many identities and passwords and all that. So by identity, we're referring to more often than not in most companies, when you want to log into your laptop, right, it will ask you for your username and password, right? That username most times is more or less like a digital identity, right? And what an IAM tool does is it kind of now, it creates it's like a map, right? Or it's like a pyramid. Your digital identity is up there, and all other access or privileges you're supposed to have access to will be mapped to you at that point. So there's an identity, it controls access to other resources you're supposed to have access to in such a way that it's kind of very, very easy for the IAM guys to actually, take you off any application you're not supposed to have access to, or add you to any application you're not supposed to have access to. And the end goal is to ensure that each individual actually have the right set of resources or have access to the right set of applications they are supposed to have access to. And of course, there's probably just going to be one password they are supposed to remember to be able to access all the resources that the organization has provisioned you.
Okay, thanks, Femi. So your access management basically is talking about your digital identity. In Femi's words, it's also talking about all the activities you perform on the system. So I'm sure we all know that even on your company laptop, when you're on the internet, whatever you do is being tracked. There's something called audit trail. So all your activities are being tracked in there. Now, you also have what you call password security settings. So a lot of us, I'm sure we know password security settings. When you're trying to, create a profile on a website and it's asking you for your password, most times it will give you a guide. The minimum password length should be 8. It should contain alphanumeric characters or special characters because you want to make your password not easy to guess. You want to make it difficult such that even if an unauthorized person gains access to it, it's going to be difficult for that person to crack your password. You have idle session timeouts. Again, for most organizations, if you leave your system for about 5 minutes, automatically your system is going to lock or your screensaver is going to come on. So all of these are, identity and access controls. Now, you have your normal users and you have your admin users. So depending on the technology, for Windows system, you have your sysadmin. If it's a Linux or Unix system, you have your root. So privileged access is for admin access. So those are the people that have, escalated privileges. They can do a lot of things, especially from the back end. Under identity and access management, you also have user creation, user modification, user deletion. When you join a new company and your manager determines that you need access to a particular application, you're going to maybe fill a form. But this is 2023, so most likely you're going to raise a ticket. Put the type of privilege that is in line with your job description. So list privilege, the minimum access you need to be able to adequately perform your role. And if by chance you resign, you want to move on, they also need to take off your access from the system. The main risk here is unauthorized access, which is really key. Unauthorized or inappropriate access. Imagine you've resigned from your company and you can still log in. So that is why identity and access management is very key. And the good part about identity and access management is it's not very technical. As we talk about these domains, I'm sure you're already making notes to say, this part's technical, this part's maybe not so technical. Okay. And then we have security assessment and testing.
Okay, let me speak to that, right? So if you remember all the things we've said from the top, right? Security and risk management, asset security, architecture and engineering, communications, identity and access management. Now, security assessment and testing actually now checks the effectiveness of all these processes, checks the operating effectiveness of all these processes. And a lot of people will think security assessment is all about, a technical guy hacking and testing. Yes, that is one part. But another part, there are also, non-technical security assessments, like there are maturity assessments, right? That will take you through the NIST process of identify, detect, protect, respond, and recover. That is a security assessment, right? There are technical security assessments also that will take you into checking, the effectiveness of these controls. For example, Femi mentioned something of a digital identity. Now, think about if somebody, a hacker, can get somebody's digital identity. What can the person do? How far can the person go, right? That is where technical testing comes in, right? They are trying to test the controls. Can I steal a digital identity? How far can I go? Before somebody mentioned under network and communication security that HTTPS is on Chrome. And when you type in google.com, it takes you to google.com. Can I compromise in between? I'm sure you heard something called man in the middle. Can I jump in the middle of that communication? Right? Okay. Somebody mentioned password length of 8 under identity and access management. Can I break it? Did somebody make a mistake and make it 7 or even 6 or even 5? Right? Did somebody use their password on Google as the same password in my office? Can I go to somewhere called the dark web, get a bunch of passwords and test it? Right? These are all security assessments to test the effectiveness of these security domains that have been implemented in any organization. Most times, right, they are always to improve the security posture, right? Say, hey, we found these weaknesses here, right? Even from asset security. And there's been an interesting example, right? There was an assessment going on, and this organization had, a lot of footprint, but they closed down part of their footprint, but they did not close down the assets, the internet-facing assets of these entities that they closed down, which means those internet-facing assets were still on the internet. So while doing a security assessment and testing, those hanging assets were identified. And guess what? Like Fala said at the start, if you do not know your assets, then you cannot protect your assets. And so because they did not know that these assets were out there, those assets were not well protected. And because they were not well protected, they were vulnerable. So part of the testing team identified those and were able to compromise it. And guess what? They were able to get back to the core organization. So security assessment and testing are processes and procedures to ensure that to test the operating effectiveness of security controls that have been applied. It's just as simple as that. And remember, like I said earlier, there are technical and non-technical sides, right? Yeah, Femi, do you want to take it on?
Okay, let me add to that, Debo. So something happened in my company, and I would like to say it here, right? Like Debo said, when it comes to security assessment and testing, we have the technical part and we have the non-technical part, right? I've seen people that are not security folks get users' password and they're able to guess correctly. I mean, is that bad, right? And it's your responsibility as a security guy to make sure that the entire company is secured, right? But you see someone that is not really this guy is not technical and all that. He kind of just reached out to the security team and said, come on, he was trying to do something and he realized that he could actually log into a particular application using this password. To be honest, it saw just one random password on the internet. It decided to test that password and it was able to, enter the application. I mean, it was able to guess the admin password of a critical application of the company, right? You can imagine, how we fared as a security team, because we thought we've done everything in place. We thought, we've done our assessment. We thought we're all up there and all that. And this is someone, a normal operational guy, reaching out to the security team to say he was able to log into a very critical application system by guessing just the password of an admin guy. So if that guy was actually very malicious, or if he was very technical and he knew what he was doing, it could actually bring down the application. It could probably steal data. It could do a lot of stuff, right? So a security assessor doesn't really have to to be technical, right? A non-technical guy can actually also help you to identify weaknesses within your infrastructure, right? So in terms of career, what exactly are we looking at here, right? As a security assessor, we are looking at a vulnerability manager, right? These are the guys that actually have tools in place to scan your network. They normally use tools, to scan your network, right? We also have the technical guys, or other set of technical guys called the penetration testers. These are guys that actually leverage on, publicly available tools, bespoke tools, sometimes based on their coding skills and some other set of skills to actually, try to see if there are security weaknesses within your asset, and they try to exploit it, and they try to go as deep as they can to be able to present to management what a potential hacker or what a cyber criminal could actually do if they compromise the security of an asset. So they try to test your applications, test your assets, test your infrastructure, both from over the internet as well as within your network, to see how far they can go in terms of exploiting, your infrastructure. And at the end of the day, the whole goal. So if this is your domain, right? At the end of the day, what they're trying to do is to, go back to the security architect and the security engineers that Deborah mentioned earlier to say, you guys actually implemented these controls. You were fine, but I've been able to, uncover these weaknesses. I've been able to exploit these weaknesses. I've been able to go this deep. I've been able to extract this data. Now, take my report, go back and fix this issue so that this doesn't occur. I'm a good guy. You call me white hacker. I'm a good guy. I'm not going to expose this to the internet. But if a bad guy actually, have access to this kind of information, how bad it could be for the organization. And that's what I'm trying to add here. Shadi, over to you, Debo.
Thanks, Femi. So basically, as Debo and Femi have said, you have so many cybersecurity domains. You have security consultants, you have pen testers, you have so many roles. Now, imagine everybody has done what you're supposed to do. You've configured your security tools, your scanning tools, your security compliance tools. And then you have these people. So the people that work within this space are the assurance people, the pen testers, the GRC people, the IT auditors. So basically, they've come to say, okay, we want to simulate an attack, right? To be able to test how secure the controls you've put in, right? Are we able to successfully bypass the security controls? Are we able to exploit vulnerabilities on the network, on your infrastructure to gain unauthorized access? So these are the people that provide an expert opinion on all the security controls that have been implemented so far. I really like this space. Okay. And then because of time, I'll just quickly talk about security operations and software development security. So when you're talking about your security operations, you're talking about like your SOC, right? So in SOC, what do? You're reviewing your logs from your intrusion management, intrusion prevention or detection system, your logs from your firewalls. You're trying to make sure that you're preventing for example, let's say you see a hit online. You're looking at your IDS or your IPS logs. You can decide to terminate some incoming traffic. You can decide to put in some rules on your firewall to prevent certain IP addresses from coming in. And then you have your software development security. So these are the people. Remember, Debo said that security has to be thought of from the beginning, not as an afterthought. So whenever you're developing any application, you are writing codes, you need to make sure that you follow the software development lifecycle methodology, just high level. Okay. So now we've talked about cybersecurity domains. Now we're now going to talk about cybersecurity pathways. Okay. But basically, as I mentioned earlier, cybersecurity is really huge. It encompasses both technical and non-technical roles. So we're going to start with non-technical. Oh, you know what? Let's start with the harder one first. So we're going to start with technical and then go to non-technical.
Okay, so yeah, let's stop here. So let's think about, I mentioned earlier at the introduction of cybersecurity, that cybersecurity is a business risk. So at the end of the day, if you're technical or you're not technical, you must be able to interpret and roll up whatever you say to management. There is zero value in you telling your CEO that I was able to exploit port 3389 to gain unauthorized access to the DB on this, on that, through, there is zero value in that. As a security person, you must be able to say, hey, we tested your environment and we were able to access your business and we're able to see this. Now you are speaking the language of the business. There have been cases where we had to go ahead to management to say, hey, we're able to gain access to your network. And the manager was like, wait, I want to understand. Give me in terms of a door. Was there a door? Did the door have a key and a lock? Was the door locked? And so we said, yes, there was a door, which means there were security controls. Yes, there was a lock, which means there were security controls. However, the door was unlocked, which means the password was weak. That was how we passed a very technical message to a non-technical individual. And when he was going to talk to his board, he used that exact same example. There was a door, there was a lock, but the door was not locked, which was a weak password. So let us always think about the business side of things. Okay, now let's talk security engineering. I want to talk security engineering. I want to quickly focus on engineering versus analyst. Now, this is not written anywhere, but this is from the experience I've seen, in the field, right? Security engineers are very product focused, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Whereas analysts are majorly operations focused. Now, let me give a typical example. We know Netflix. Netflix is a product, right? Netflix is a product, is a streaming service, movies, series, and recently, games. A security engineer for Netflix will focus on the Netflix product itself, the security of those streaming services, the movies, which means if there is a series that is meant to be released tomorrow, a security engineer must have built-in controls to make sure that it does not get released today, and hackers cannot push to make sure it is released today. That is a security engineer. What is an analyst? An analyst is internal to the organization. It is making sure that Netflix staff, Netflix people, Netflix CEOs, right, are not compromised, right? They are protecting them from phishing. They are protecting them, from external hackers. So engineering is focused on the products, like the Netflix movies. Analyst is focused on the internal operations of, cybersecurity within the organization to protect operational cybersecurity functions. Can we go on next slide, please, for?
Okay.
So here I want to talk very briefly. No, can you go click on next slide? I need the transition. Yeah. I want to talk about 4 types of form that flow into the engineering side, not the analyst. But I would also talk about the analyst side of things. When I talk about an engineering architect, right? The engineering architect is building security into the product. If you have an iPhone, there must have been a security architect that built some sort of security into the iPhone. Whereas an analyst in Apple will be protecting Apple's staff. Whereas a security engineer for iPhone will be building security into the iPhone. The product is the iPhone for an engineer. The product for the analyst is the people and the organization, right? But they both exist, but they exist differently, right? So, for example, the architect will definitely review the design architectures, review architecture diagrams, process flows, the sequence diagram, review a lot of documentation. But the focus of an engineering architect is the product. The focus of an analyst from an engineering perspective, from an analyst perspective, is the organization. So, like I said, I gave you the example of an iPhone. Where do you have an architect coming from an analyst position, right? Let's say you have a system. Like I mentioned, internet banking. You want to expose internet banking, to the internet, right? Your internal guy will make sure that the architecture from the organization, right, is superb, that we can expose internet banking. Your security architect will make sure that that product called internet banking is built securely, right? So please, let's think about it from those two perspectives. Engineers are focused on products. Analysts are focused on internal and operational sides of things. But generally, the security architect will review the designs and architecture diagrams. And most times, their jobs are mainly theoretical. What does that mean? It means you can do it. It means if you read enough, if you are happy to research, you're not doing any technical work, you can be an architect over time, because all you'll be doing is reviewing designs, reviewing architectures, but you must have an understanding. You must have a good technical background. But that means you're not hacking, you're not testing anything, you are only preferring design, consultations and design solutions. Let's move to pen tester. On the pen testing side, now, if you're a pen tester on the engineering side, now you will be testing the iPhone as a product. You are testing just the iPhone. You are not testing the people. You are not testing the Apple ecosystem. As a security engineering pen tester, you are testing the iPhone. As a matter of fact, you might be testing just iPhone 13 or iPhone 14. You would spend a lot of time testing just that product. However, as a pen tester for the organization, you'll be testing everything that Apple owns. All the internal services, iCloud, whatever it is, right? Apple Mail, Apple Pay. You'll be testing all that. But if you're on the engineering side, you'll be focused strictly on the product, which is probably an iPhone or maybe iCloud Mail or something like that. So from a pen testing perspective, that is the difference. Bug bounty / incident response. From the engineering side, because you are focused on a product, you are thinking about, if external people test my product, how do they tell me that there's something bad in my product? For example, Apple will be releasing patches from time to time, right? It is based on multiple sources: internal testing, external testing. When you have a bug bounty program, this makes sure that whatever is tested outside comes to you first, and then you give a bounty. You give some, say, thank you for reporting this vulnerability to me and not going public or not selling it to the malicious folks to take over my system, right? So you must always give a bounty. Sometimes it is in dollars, in money. Sometimes it could be in merchandise, t-shirts. Sometimes it could be a letter of appreciation. But with a bug bounty program, right, there must be some sort of reward for bugs found. On the flip side, incident response, right, is you responding to a compromise. That's on the analyst side, right? You responding to an attack. So somebody hacked your organization, right? And now you need to respond to that. They are closely matched, but on the incident response side, there is no reward. Literally, you have been hacked and you are chasing, you have a race against time to secure your organization and to keep things, back to normal and to recover. Right? That will happen on the analyst side. Security engineers will, most times, when they receive a bug bounty and they see how massive the impact might be, they might call the incident responding team, incident responders, and say, hey guys, these have a massive impact and a massive potential. Can we see if they have already been compromised, right? So bug bounty is a good way to get feedback from the world, to say, hey, how did you test my product? Is my iPhone secure? No, my iPhone is not secure. If your iPhone is not secure, that means over 1.3 maybe million people that use an iPhone have that issue. Now you call in incident response and say, hey guys, how do we respond to this? How do we push out a bug? How do we push out a patch? How do we do all that? So bug bounty is a very good way in security engineering. And the good news also is it is not technical. So don't always think about, hey, it is so technical. No, bug bounty is not technical. You send it to some security engineers, maybe your pen tester to confirm. Once they confirm, they start hitting people to say, hey, let's fix this. Let's go to automation. Now, automation is the core side of security engineering that deals with developers. So if you were a programmer and then you're thinking of crossing into security programming, engineering automation is for you. If you are interested in development, I am saying, which area should I focus on? Security automation is an option, right? If you're thinking, oh, I have a few development skills, I want to grow, I'm thinking of automation is an option, right? It is a technical role, just like the pen tester. It is a technical role, but these guys do two major things. One, they help make our lives easier because they automate as much as possible. When you think about a developer and a developer pipeline, I'm sorry, that's a little technical, but a developer pipeline is a set of functions or services or stages that an application would go through before it becomes live. What does that mean? Netflix will have gone through a minimum of multiple stages before it comes to your TV or comes to your phone, right? That is called a development pipeline. All the stages that an application or a software goes through before it becomes a software product is called a development pipeline. So think about it like a typical pipeline, right? From a pump station through the pipe to your house, maybe water or maybe oil and all that. There is a developer pipeline, all the stages that a developer goes through. Now, a security automation engineer makes sure that at every stage of that pipeline, security is built in. So, are you at the design phase? Security must be built in. Are you at the development phase? You must be using secure protocols. You must be using secure functions. You must be using secure authentication functions. Are you at the testing phase, right? You can bring in a pen tester to test, right? Are you at the production phase, right? You must continuously test. So an automation engineer makes sure that at every phase of the security development lifecycle or of the software development lifecycle, security is embedded in there. So the security automation engineers help us a lot to make sure that security is built in to products and services. They also help us automate some of our security functions very quickly, like pen testing for vulnerability assessment. An automation engineer can build a tool that will do a quick vulnerability assessment and give us quick results just to see what it looks like. So in the world of security engineering, these are the big four groups. However, there are more than that. There are different organizations implementing security engineering in a different way. But these are the four major groups, right, that consist of security engineering. And I think two of them are very technical, two of them are not so technical. So you've got options here. Back to you for a lot of them.
Okay. Thank you so much, Debo. So guys, we want to sort of decompress a little bit. So again, back to Slido. I've put in, a few questions based on what we've covered so far, and they're very simple. I know that, most people here are beginners. So let's go back a little bit. Okay, guys, are you on Slido? I need you to answer the new questions I've put in.
Okay, so while we're doing that, I want to quickly chip in something, right? So I think a lot of you might be thinking, oh, cybersecurity is high up there. It is very difficult. There is a need for cybersecurity analysts. There is a need for people in the cybersecurity space. So I would tell you this. All you need to join cybersecurity is you have to be interested, and you have to just do a little bit of research and join in at a lower bar. They need people. Cybersecurity needs people like yesterday, right? Because the threats are growing and there are not enough people. So don't think about the fact that I spoke about security engineering. Whoa, this is so difficult, right? You can be a GRC support. I mean, you can be a SOC analyst and you get to see stuff, right? You can be, you can do security assessments from the non-technical perspective. You can be a junior security architect, which means you have a senior security architect and you would support the person. And over a period of time, you will become a full-blown security architect. I can tell you, a lot of you here are already doing some sort of pen testing. You just don't know. Trying to guess your husband's PIN code for his phone, we know that, right? Trying to get access to some Wi-Fi, you know that, right? Testing is just testing. So please don't think about the raw definitions and then run away from it. Please feel free to connect, feel free to ask your questions, and we will show you ways, just to get into cybersecurity. Fola, I want to say something?
Yes. So I see that people are asking how to get back to Slido. So it's slido.com on your URL bar. Type in slido.com. This is the pin. Or you could use your phone to take a picture of this barcode and it would automatically pop up the URL. Okay, please, I missed the barcode. No worries. The barcode is on my screen. Okay, I see that we have a few responses, but we need more responses. So slido.com and the pin is on my screen, 3943214. Okay, I see people are typing. Okay. So let's go view the responses. Okay, so the question is, what points do you remember from identity and access management? User creation, deletion, grant specific access. Okay. What else? Digital ID, fantastic. What else? What else, guys? Access security, okay. Access per design, okay. Authentication, fantastic. Business accessibility. Okay, I see that you guys are listening and assimilating, so that's really good. Most people are, the common response here is grant specific access. Okay, that's good to know. Now, let's go to the other question. I see more people are typing. Guys, keep your responses coming in. Authorization and authentication, 2FA. Okay, good job. Let's move on to our next question. So again, our next question, there's another question in there. I'm just gonna, how do you determine that a website is secure? Okay, so we covered this earlier. How do you determine that there's an icon you're going to see for you to determine, okay, I see it. Yes, and confirming it shows HTTPS. Okay, so there's HTTP and fantastic, HTTPS and not HTTP. Okay. And then that padlock sign on the fantastic. Someone just sent that in. Checking the digital signature. Oh, fantastic. I see we're all engaged. Okay, so now we've spoken about the technical side of cybersecurity. We're now going to talk about the non-technical side of cybersecurity. Okay, I'm sure this is the area that is going to interest, a lot of people. So again, while technical roles, require specialized skills in areas such as network security, incident response, which Debo has spoken about, cryptography. So cryptography is another way of talking about encryption. You also need to know malware analysis and a whole lot more. But non-technical roles, on the other hand, focus on management, strategy, compliance, governance of security. So I'm going to start with the first one, Cybersecurity GRC. So GRC means governance, risk, and compliance. What is governance? Governance speaks to management's direction, policies, processes, standards, baselines, frameworks, committees, to ensure that all the applications, your data, your sensitive data, your systems are adequately protected. While risk is talking of a possibility that an event will occur that will prevent an organization from achieving its objective. So for example, if maybe there's an earthquake or your organization, is exposed to a ransomware attack, fall victims to a ransomware attack, that is going to prevent system downtime. Customers will be unable to access the system. So again, that is a huge risk. And what will be the impact? Loss of revenue, legal fights or penalties. Imagine, I'm sure we all remember, I think a few months ago, one of the big telcos in Canada, their service was down for like a couple of hours. Imagine if you were stranded somewhere and you needed to call for help. So again, when all of this impact or negative impact occur, it can have, a negative impact on organizations. For sure, they're going to lose money. And then compliance. Compliance is basically you checking that your tools, your applications, your people all comply with your standards, your policies, the governance piece of it. So this is one of the very common non-technical areas in cybersecurity. Although we call it GRC, you have so many roles that can fall under this. Example, IT governance specialist, security compliance analyst, PCI DSS analyst, IT risk manager. Femi, do you want to chip in?
Yeah, sure. So I just want to talk about what you should expect, when you want to take on these non-technical roles, right? Like a day in the life of office, cybersecurity GRC specialist. So GRC stands for governance, risk, and compliance, right? Talking about governance, this is going to be the expectation. Depending on your organization and the company you work for, there will be several security policies, right? Starting from your information security policy, your login and monitoring policy, cryptography policy, chain management, software development lifecycle policy, information classification policy, and all that. So as a governance specialist, the expectation is you're going to maintain these policies. You're going to ensure that these policies are reviewed on a yearly basis, right? You're going to work with the security engineer, the security architect to understand, okay, what are the current trends, in the world right now? Do you need to incorporate that into your policies and get that approved by management, right? So as a GRC specialist, it's your responsibility to ensure that, you create the necessary security policies for your organization and to ensure that these policies are reviewed and approved by management, on a yearly basis. And that area you'll probably be looking at is the implementation of some industry standard, like your ISO 27001, your COBIT, your NIST framework and all that. As a GRC specialist, your companies probably will rely on you to ensure that the practices of the organization are benchmarked against the industry accepted framework, right? Or standard like ISO 27001. I've seen companies reach out to me to say, you know what, Femi, I want to implement ISO 27001 because is the overarching framework for, for an information security management system. Some companies want to redesign their information security management system. They want to improve their, the information security posture, and to do that, they want to rely on this widely acceptable information security framework, which is ISO 27001. Another framework, another common framework that our companies try to implement is the COVID framework, right? COVID 2019. When companies want to, improve on their IT processes, improve on their security processes, and they reach out to you as the GRC specialist to say, okay, how much experience do you have with respect to COVID 2019, right? Please, we need you to help. We need your team to help, benchmark our existing IT processes against the requirement of COVID 2019, right? Another framework is the NIST framework. There are so many industry acceptable frameworks out there. It all depends on the direction of the organization. Just know that if your company wants to implement any of this framework, they will come to you as a GRC specialist. So that's the governance part of what we do, right? The risk aspect, there are about 4 things that you're going to do. The first one is the third-party security risk assessment. Currently, companies are outsourcing their internal resources. Companies are buying into the products of other companies and all that. Companies are actually outsourcing their data storage and all that. What happens is you can actually outsource this thing, but the accountability still lies with you as an organization. If you outsource your data processing to a different organization and that organization gets breached, your name is going to be what is going to be in the news. I as a person, if I kind of, submit my data to company A, and company A decides to give company B to process my data for me, if my data gets leaked, I won't go and make company B, right? I'll go and make company A that, hey, company A, I gave you my data, right? What happened to it? Why did you give company B? Why didn't you do due diligence? So as a GRC specialist, one of the things you do is to monitor your third parties, those guys you've outsourced your data to, those guys that are actually responsible, or those guys that take care of some specific services within your organization, those guys that have access to your data. You want to make sure that those third-party organizations actually have, they've implemented the necessary security controls to protect the data you've outsourced to them. Because like I said, you can actually outsource responsibility, you can't outsource accountability. If anything happens, your name is going to be in the news, right? So as a GRC specialist, your company will rely on you to help monitor, to do what we call a third-party cybersecurity risk assessment on a periodic basis, right? So what that means is you do due diligence on the third-party vendors that you use. You reach out to them. We have this set of security questionnaires that we develop, that you send over to the third-party vendors to complete, right? You assess it. When they send it back to you, you look at it, coupled with other supporting evidence that they send to you. You look at it. You'll be able to, understand if the third-party vendor actually have, good security controls in place, or if the cybersecurity maturity level of that third-party vendor actually is up there, and you just want to get comfort that the data you've outsourced to these guys are actually well protected, right? That's the third-party cybersecurity risk assessment. Another thing you'll probably be doing is the application security assessment. When the security engineers have designed their applications, they've designed their applications, they're trying to go live and all that. What you do is what we call application security assessment. So you have a checklist of what you want to check for, right, to make sure the application is actually okay, and that the application meets the information security requirements of your organization. Like you said, like Debo said, maybe your password length, right? Maybe it's a company's policy. One of the things you've documented in your information security policies or your information security standard is, or your password security standard is, the minimum password length should be like 12, 12, do not password length should be like 12 characters, right? Now, when you do your application security assessment, you want to ask the developer of the application, okay, show me the, based on our policy, the minimum password length configured or defined or engineered into this application is actually 12 characters and not 7 or 8 characters. All those sort of good things, right? So that's what you do when you do application security assessment. Another thing you're going to be doing as a GRC analyst is what we call exception assessment. Exception assessment comes in when someone wants to go against the policy of the organization. For instance, the policy says like in my company now, we are not allowed to use USB, right? But there are some instances or there's some scenarios that will warrant like a senior management staff or probably someone out there, to want to implement or to want to, have USB access approved on his laptop, right? Then it comes to you as a GRC analyst to perform an assessment, right? So you look at it, why is this person asking for this? What is the duration? What is the risk if you allow this? Will this laptop be connected to the internet and all those sort of good things, right? So you perform your assessment, you give the go ahead that the USB access should be enabled, or probably maybe you assess the risk and you say, you know what, no, this is not good enough. You don't want to approve this. So in short, what you do is for anybody going against the policy of your company, it's your responsibility as a GRC guy to perform an assessment to be sure that there are no risks being introduced by going against the policy of your organization. And of course, every other risk assessment out there. So as a GRC guy, you're going to be performing risk assessments periodically, right? At the end of an audit, when the audit report is sent to you, it's your responsibility to look at the findings, perform an assessment to be sure that okay, what is the risk? Okay, so for instance, vulnerability assessment. The board will agree with me that when you run your vulnerability reports and all that, when you see the CVE score for some vulnerabilities, you'll be like, wow, are you really serious right now? There's some vulnerabilities, they'll tell you this vulnerability is very, very critical and everybody's running everywhere. It happened in my organization, right? So there was a vulnerability report. Management saw it and management was like, wow, critical, and everybody was running everywhere. Then I was on vacation, everybody was running everywhere. They needed to fix this vulnerability and all that. Eventually, I had to cut my vacation short. I came in and I performed an assessment, and I was able to defend that this is not a critical vulnerability. This is a medium vulnerability. You guys don't really need to be running everywhere and all that. That is also one of the things we do in GRC, performing risk assessment periodically, looking at vulnerability reports, performing assessment to be sure that whatever the CVE score is for a particular vulnerability you are assessing, vis-a-vis the criticality of your assets, to be sure that, maybe this vulnerability is actually not a high or a critical, maybe it's just a medium or a low, most especially if the asset is not internet facing. And those are other parameters that you consider during your risk assessment. Right? So that's the risk part. There's still more, but I don't want to go too much. The last part is the compliance part of the GRC. And what do you do? There's a framework we call SOC 2 framework. And what's the SOC 2 framework? If your company is actually selling services to other companies, or if your company is going to be hosting the data of other companies, I said this before, right? Like if you're outsourcing your data to another company, right? If company A is outsourcing data to company B, company A needs to perform due diligence on company B, right? So company A will be asking for perform like third-party security risk assessment on company B. So let's assume that you're working for company B, right? Now, when company A is reaching out to you to perform due diligence, there's something you can actually show that you have good security controls in place, and that's what we call a SOC 2. I don't want to dwell too much on that. So a SOC 2 is more or less like a report you produce that shows that you've actually assessed the security controls around the product you are selling to your customers, and you can show them with that report that you have good controls in place to protect their data. Right? There are so many factors around that I don't want to dwell into, but in a nutshell, for companies that sell services to other companies, it's very, very important for them to actually, be involved in SOC 2 to be certified against SOC 2, right? And what that does is instead of responding to several security questionnaires coming from your customers, with a SOC 2 report, you can share that with your customers and say, you know what, guys, please hold on to, I know you want to perform due diligence on me, but hold on to your security questionnaires. I'm going to produce a report called a SOC 2 report. With this report, you can see all the controls I've implemented to secure the data. Look at it. If you have any issue, reach out to me instead of, the GRC guys spending countless times, or spending countless hours, completing security questionnaires from their customers that want to perform due diligence on them. We also have another one, SOX. SOX audit is very IT related. I don't want to talk so much about it, but just know that there's a SOX that you're probably going to be responsible for. And the last but not the least is, as a GRC analyst, you serve as a link between external auditors and the business, right? Or probably the IT folks, right? So if there's going to be external auditors coming in to audit your environment or to review your environment, they go through the GRC team. So the GRT sounds like the link between the external auditors and the internal guys, right? So a GRC guy reaches out to the IT guys and says, the external guy, the external auditor is requesting for this information. Pass the information to me. You look at it, you review it, and if you're comfortable with the information they are passing around, then you can push it over to the external auditor. So what are you trying to do? What you're trying to do is to make sure that you're only giving the auditor the right information to perform the audit. You don't want to give your external auditors more. Of course, I'm not saying you should hide the information, but you just want to give them the exact data that they need to do their audit. The more information you expose to the external auditors, the more issues they probably will uncover, and not that if they uncover anything, depending on how you set up your environment. But it's the responsibility of a GRC guy to act as a link between the external auditors as well as the IT folks and the security folks. Enough said. Shadi, I'll pass over to you now.
Thank you so much, Femi. That was a lot shared. But just to recap, basically, for you to function as a GRC, you must be able to wear many hats. Day one, you might be wearing the hat of an IT auditor. Day two, you might be wearing the hat of an IT risk manager. Day three, you might be wearing the hat of an IT consultant or a business advisor, right? So maybe they are developing an application or a tool, and they say, oh, we need expert information, or we need to consult someone. They go to GRC. Day four, you might be asked to say, oh, we're coming up, we want to update our information security policy. GRC Analyst, can you tell us what frameworks should we align this information security policy to? So the good thing about cybersecurity GRC is you're not an implementer. So what this means is you don't need to write code. You're not a pen tester, so nobody expects you to be writing Linux commands, right? Although you understand it, because although we say cybersecurity GRC is not technical, you still need to understand technology because you're going to be speaking a lot of technical lingo, right? So as a cybersecurity GRC specialist, you need to understand best practice security frameworks, like Femi has said, ISO 27001, COBIT 5. You need to understand DRP. You need to understand identity and access management. Most of those domains, you need to understand it, at least high level. You need to have a good understanding of cloud security. But when you go online and check for a lot of GRC rules, you would usually see they must have a good understanding of ISMS, ISO 27001, the different NIST frameworks. Maybe NIST 853, NIST risk management framework. They need to understand CIS. That's another framework. They need to understand SOC. They need to understand SOX. So at the minimum, you need to understand these frameworks. You also need to understand different technology domains. Change management is a domain. Identity and access management, software development lifecycle, job scheduling, so many. And that's why when you also look at, the requirements for GRC, at times they say prior experience of IT audit is an added advantage because you need to be able to understand controls, security controls, IT controls. Security compliance would also fall under cybersecurity GRC. And another framework we both forgot about is PCI DSS. So for a lot of organizations that process or store card data, they must be compliant with PCI DSS. So as GRC specialists, you need to ensure that your organization is complying with regulatory requirements. If you operate in maybe Europe or you have customers in Europe, you need to comply with GDPR. If it's a healthcare organization, you need to comply with HIPAA, right? So there are so many regulations out there, so many regulatory requirements out there that as a GRC specialist, you should understand. But again, it's not very technical. You don't code. So when we say technical and non-technical, the best way to understand it is to think of it this way, almost like coding and non-coding. Now, remember that not all coding is you writing programming language, not Python, C#, Java, and the rest. Now, if you're a pen tester, as an example, you need to be able to write Linux command. You need to be able to write scripts. So if you've seen a Linux system, it doesn't have a GUI, graphic user interface. It's almost, when you go to your command prompt on your laptop, You see that black interface and you write scripts in white and you click enter. That is what your Linux box looks like. So when we say technical and non-technical, it's basically how deep you want to go into. As long as you're going into any technology role, you need to understand technology. Okay. Then we have information security awareness. So again, remember that humans are the weakest link for any organization. And that is why when you join any new organization, you're probably going to, take trainings for maybe 1 week, 2 weeks, or even up to 1 month. You're going to do cybersecurity training, information security training, risk training, TPRM trainings, because they want to make sure that you are not ignorant. You are aware of all your responsibilities. Everybody has a responsibility to play when managing risks for an organization. So the team, the information security awareness, they are the ones that ensure that, employees are appropriately trained. They understand their responsibilities with respect to protecting and securing an organization's systems or its data. Okay, Debo, do you want to chip in?
Yeah, I just want to say information security awareness is one of the big sides in cybersecurity that gets management visibility. We have had cases where you go do cybersecurity awareness to board members. What is required for an information security awareness? Are you a good speaker or a good orator? Do you know how to put slides together, compelling, good slides together? Do you know how to sell a product, which is cybersecurity or information security? Are you confident, right? And can you keep abreast of cybersecurity issues? The answer is to all that is yes. Cybersecurity awareness or information security awareness is for you because all you are doing is getting information from the technical sides and from the non-technical sides, synthesizing that information together to simple business languages and preaching the cybersecurity word to everybody, right? So you might decide to have a cybersecurity awareness session every quarter. And this will talk about what is the posture of cybersecurity organization? What is the posture of cybersecurity in the world? How are we looking vis-a-vis the world? What are the gaps? And what are the new things coming? Management and the board are very interested in information security, but they do not want to hear technical jargons. So if you are able to articulate your words, convert technical to business, right? Do stunning business-focused presentations, then information security awareness is for you. And it is big, right? It is very big. So I see there's a baker in there that joined us, right, when we started. You are a baker, you sell your pastries, you sell your cakes, right? How do you put that concept? Where do you research concept for baking and all that? That same skill is transferable into information security awareness. You will just be gathering data about cybersecurity. And the same way you sell your cakes, you will sell information security. And that's it. So please, I want us to keep an open mind and know that cybersecurity awareness and a lot of fields in cybersecurity, it's very relatable to the things we do day to day. And that's just what I wanted to tell you. All right, back to you, Fola.
Debo, you took the words right out of my mouth. So basically, I'm going to quickly relate cybersecurity GRC to our daily activities. So I'm going to start with risk. Everybody in here, you're a risk person, especially when it comes to spending money. When your partner or your kids come to you to say, oh, we need to make this investment, we need to do something, you're going to think about it. When you think, what you're doing is you're assessing risk. Before you buy a new house, you have to think, okay, where am I going to get a down payment from? When I buy this house or when I start this pre-construction, what can go wrong? Would the construction company run away with my money? Are they going to fully build the house and present it to me? So once you're analyzing, assessing to say what can go wrong, That is you basically assessing your risk. And then when you're talking about likelihood, how likely is this going to happen? For example, you want to put money in an investment. Your financial analyst or advisor has convinced you. They told you, oh, you're going to get 10% return. You're going to do this. You're going to get that. You're not going to take their words. You're going to go back, analyze, right? To say, okay, worst case scenario, if there is a dip and I lose money, what will be the impact? Am I able to hold on? So for all those that bought Bitcoin, that's a very good example. A lot of you would have analyzed. When your friends say, oh, do Bitcoin, you're going to go back home and think about it. Is this what I want to do? What can go wrong? And if it goes wrong, what will be the impact? Nobody's going to take, their children's school fees to go and invest in something, because you're going to think, what if I don't recoup that money? How are my kids going to go to school? So in our everyday activities, we all assess risk. When you want to go on a road trip, you're going to go to your car. You're going to check everything to say, are my tires, do they have the right pressure? Do I have fuel? On my way, what can go wrong? If you want to go, make a trip in the night, you need to think, what can go wrong? Am I going to feel sleepy? If I feel sleepy, if that's a risk, meaning it can lead to a car crash, then you need to think of controls, mitigating controls to say, okay, I'm going to set alarms, maybe hourly alarms to keep me up, or I'm going to play music really loud, or I'm going to get my friend so that when I'm tired, my friend is going to take over, or I'm going to chew gum. So those are controls you're already thinking of to say, okay, to mitigate the risk of a car crash, these are the controls I put in place. And then when you talk about compliance, in your home, for example, if you don't want people coming into your home with their shoes on, you might decide to put a note or an instruction at the entrance to say, please take off your shoes before you come home. That is governance. That is management's direction. Everybody that comes into your home is going to read that instruction and take off their shoes. And if you are not home and you want to make sure that every visitor is compliant, you might install a CCTV, and then from wherever you are, remotely, you're checking. And Femi comes to my home and he doesn't take off his shoes. I have a speaker that's going to say, Femi, please take off your shoes. You're not complying. So that is compliance. So basically what I'm trying to get at is, when you want to transition to tech, you might take it in steps, baby steps. And that's what I tell people. Take baby steps. You've heard so much today. We've shared so much today. There are certain areas you might say, oh, I'm interested in this area. Oh, this area is not for me, right? So take baby steps. All of these frameworks we've spoken about, start researching them. Go online, go look up job description for cybersecurity GRC roles or even IT audit roles, and try and identify the common lingo, what is common to these roles, and you start upskilling. Femi, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, so actually, I just want to talk about the information security awareness, right? Just to add to what Debo and Shadia, what they've said, right? They're also, so you don't need to start thinking that, oh my God, how will I start developing my content every day? I need to start, lecturing my colleagues on information security and all that, and start creating content and all that. We have nice tools out there. I mean, there are some companies out there that your organization can actually partner with, to drive information security within the organization, right? So one of the things you do is, partner with the organization. The organization will help you to develop the content, share the content with you, look at it if it's nice. Then you find a way to disseminate the content to everyone within your organization, right? So don't fret over this. Don't be scared. Don't keep wondering, like, how exactly will you do this for so long? Where will the content come from? How will you research on industry trends and all that? Trust me, your company is going to spend money to work with those third-party companies to be able to drive information security within the organization. They will help you to set up videos. They will set up questionnaires, 5 minutes, 10 minutes videos, which you're going to, disseminate to everyone within your company, depending on how your company has been set up. And, so at that point, your role will be about reaching out to everyone in your organization, encouraging everyone to actually click on the videos and complete the assessment, right? That's going to be your role at that point. So your role is not going to be about searching the whole internet, looking for content and all that. Your role at that point will be about being able to now talk to managers, talk to executives to say, we've developed the content now, we've shared the links with you guys, but it's very, very important for you guys to click on the videos, watch the videos, and probably complete one or two questions at the end of the video. That's just what I want to add to that.
Thanks, Femi. So again, back to Slido, we have this question. Which of the cybersecurity career paths resonates with you? We've spoken about some. Now, I see that there are no responses for security controls tester and malware analyst. So I'm guessing that you probably don't know what it means. So I'm going to quickly talk about that. Remember when we talked about cybersecurity domains, we talked about security assessment and testing. So that is what security controls testing means. You're going to be testing controls around identity and access management, disaster recovery plan, change management, TPRM, all of that. So that's what security controls tester means. And then malware analysis, you are analyzing malware. There are so many types of cybersecurity threats, right? So your job is basically to analyze all of that. Now, I see that most people here want to go for cybersecurity GRC analyst. And I see that there are very brave people here, really fantastic, that want to become pen testers. Okay, so if we look at this, survey, over half of people here want to go into the non-technical side of cybersecurity. And we have, wow, I was going to say 25%, but then it keeps reducing. So yes, more and more people into GRC. Okay, but I really like the fact that, there are people here that are looking towards security engineering. That's another key area, right? So when you're thinking about that, remember that we don't have all the time in the world to discuss, but there are certain roles we've not touched on today. For example, you have cloud security analyst, you have cloud engineer, right? Those roles are right now, they are really trending. And most times when they post those roles, on an average, those roles are open for over 75 days before they get taken off the internet. So they really need a lot of people in there. Okay, good to know. So most people, 62% here on team GRC. The fantastic thing about GRC is you have over 20 roles under GRC because GRC 2 is really broad. You can have a GRC analyst at first line of defense, 1A, second line of defense, or even third line of defense. Okay. And we all know now that security incident response, your job is to, first of all, you want to come up with a security incident response plan. Whenever there are security incidents, how do you manage it? How do you recover? How do you bounce back from that incident? How do you investigate and identify the root cause of that incident? What did you learn from that incident? And how do you modify or update your security posture to prevent that incident from occurring? So that's another interesting part.
Okay.
Go ahead, Femi. I'm just looking at the time.
Yeah, it's just very good. I'm wondering why we don't really have so many people going into this security pen testing and all that. They're probably thinking it's very technical and they're wondering if they will be able to excel in that field. But I just want to tell you guys that you can actually do it. I mean, this, apart from security GRC analyst, I'm happy that this is going on now. People are already leaving this GRC space and coming to painting. The truth is, these other domains apart from GRC analysts are actually very, very good. They are very, very interesting. Yeah, need to spend some time, learning, relearning, watching videos of all these training platforms and all that, and of course networking with the right set of people. But trust me, when you get into this domain, you understand how interesting it is on cybersecurity part. So that's just it. Don't just, I'm just trying to encourage people not to just be so focused on the GRC part. All these other security domains are also very, very interesting, and they probably want to put their hands in those domains as well. Deborah, you want to add something?
Well, I would say if you're really interested in it, right, then go for it, right? Because pen testing, security engineering, malware analysis, right, requires some drive, requires some interest, right? But they are not impossible fields, right? And maybe a motivation would be, They earn top dollar. They make good money. Right? And that is because, like you can see the analysis here, nobody wants to do that. So you would have more GRC analysts, you have more compliance folks, you have less pen testers, less security engineers. So pen testers and security engineers get to negotiate top dollar, right? So but you should be interested in it because it requires a lot of research, requires a lot of hands-on keyboard, requires, not programming, but testing out things, right? And, so there should be the interest there. Money could be a motivator. Also, personal interest should be a motivator. But it is a very interesting and a dynamic, very quick changing field. So if you're interested in research, if you're interested in technology, if you're interested in testing out controls, why not? You're welcome.
And FYI, remember that as a cybersecurity GRC analyst, you're going to get to work with all of these people. So even the roles that you're really not interested in, you still need to understand what they do, at least have a basic understanding. For example, you might be reviewing pen test reports as a GRC analyst. You might be reviewing reports from your security controls testers. So again, if you want to do GRC, you're still going to, touch base with some of these other roles or their reports. Okay, it seems like every time we say something, the numbers change. Okay.
So should we keep going? Should we keep debating?
No. It's just the numbers are just going to keep moving.
So we get more wins, right? Okay, go for it.
So because of our time, I think we've spoken so much about cybersecurity GRC already. I know Femi touched on that. And I know that Debo, you also touched on security engineering as well. So when it comes to security controls testing, you are basically providing an expert opinion on all what the other, cybersecurity specialists have done. For example, you're going to look at disaster recovery plan. When we talk about disaster recovery plan, there's also a cybersecurity aspect to it. For example, if your organization, falls victim to a ransomware attack, it's GRP that's going to help you recover. So what best practices right now is when you do online backup, you also need to keep an offline backup using tools maybe like AirGap. Because when a ransomware attack happens, not only are they going to encrypt your live data, but even all the online backup you've been doing would also be encrypted. So you really have nothing to fall over or fall back on to recover your systems. So you're going to cover patch and vulnerability management, security compliance, so everything we've spoken about today and more. Okay. Now, as Debo has said, once you can talk, you have fantastic communication skills, verbal and written. Then this is one role you will want to consider. It also has so many career pathways. Okay, so I'm trying to manage time. So here we want to talk about convergence of IT audits, GRC, and cybersecurity. And I'm going to use this image just to quickly talk about that. So in here, these are various cybersecurity roles that have been categorized into different levels. So you have your entry level, mid-level, advanced level. I know we might not have touched on some of these roles, but these are some other roles that are available. Now, when you look at the common skill sets, you need to understand networking. You need to understand software development, systems engineering, risk analysis, security intelligence, IT support. The good thing about tech is, as long as you're in tech, it's easy to move around. You can start as a GRC, and most people that even do GRC analysts, some of them were once pen testers. They just got tired of that role and say, you know what, I want to go chill in GRC. I want to stop doing, too many technical things. So that's something we need to understand, that although GRC is not a very technical role, you still need to have both technical and non-technical skills. Debo, Femi, any additions?
So let me just chime in very quickly. I have over the years I've worked in cybersecurity, I have seen people join cybersecurity from non-technical roles. Somebody I used to work with that was working as a security assessor, not pen testing, studied insurance, as bachelors, right? But it's still all about evaluating risks, right? I'm certain about insurance crossing into cybersecurity, commerce crossing into cybersecurity, right? So even though these are solid feeder roles, networking, software development, engineering, financial and risk analysis, intelligence and IT support, I think the world of cybersecurity is much bigger than these feeder roles, right? And all it takes is for you to have some interest, do a few exams so you can speak the entry level lingo, and then you can jump into any of the entry levels. I think the entry levels are spot on. The good thing about the third point, which is incident and intrusion analysis, which seems to be a very big one, but the truth is, if you are an IT support, you are already responding to incidents. You can easily transition to an incident and intrusion analyst, right? So don't think these names are super heavy duty and you can't achieve it, right? Just think, how can I map my current day-to-day to a path in cybersecurity? What path maps to it? And just follow that trend. And feel free to reach out, to Shade Winfinite, and she can give you some direction on what to do. Anything from you?
Yeah, you spot on. I also have a friend like that started as a financial auditor, right? External financial auditor. That was where he started his career from. Then from there, he transitioned into security control testing, or let me just say IT audit, right? Now, he was part of security control testing. Now, this guy is a guru when it comes to cybersecurity. He's already a pen tester now, and he's doing so well in his field. So just like Shade and Deborah have said, forget about these names, they're just heavy out there. You can actually do it. So far you have passion for it, you are ready to dedicate your time for it, you're ready to go for some certifications, read good books, network with this right set of people. You can actually do any of these things.
Hey, fantastic. Okay, so we're just going to move on. So again, we have Slido. So if you have any questions, feel free to put that in Slido so that we can address your questions. So I'm going to bring up Slido, but before I do that, I'm just going to quickly talk about, Winfinite Consulting, a company that provides training, helps people transition into tech space. So we offer 3 main program packages. The first one speaks to IT audit and cybersecurity GRC. So if you're one of those people that you don't want to go into the very technical area, then you might want to look at this training. So this training is very hands-on, all what you're going to meet when you start working. So NIST, ISO 2701, SOC, all of that is covered here practically. If you are in the US and you do compliance, so you must know FISMA, FISCAM, and all of that. So that again is covered here. TPRM is another wonderful space. Right now, TPRM, there's so many roles on TPRM. A few years ago, we never had TPRM. TPRM is third-party risk management. A lot of organizations are now setting up that department, and they need people to fill those roles. And then we have the Cybersecurity Program. So again, the first one is, beginner/intermediate level. And we have the second program, which is more technical. So for this, we ask that you at least, be at an intermediate level. This, includes penetration testing, Kali Linux, security architecture design. You're going to use tools, vulnerability scanning tools, compliance scanning tools like Qualys, Nmap, Nessus. And then this third one, which is pretty much advanced. So when you're looking at cloud and all of it. So let's go to the questions. I'm going to go into Slido again, just to see all the questions we have so far. So first question says, can you suggest a good training company to help me transition to cybersecurity? So again, you have Winfinite Consulting, and a lot of the instructors that are going to be instructing you in class, you've spoken to them already today. Secondly, how can I get the link for the recording? So again, the video recording is going to be posted on our YouTube site. So if you can subscribe to our newsletter, we send out weekly or monthly newsletters. Our website is winfiniteconsulting.com. Okay. If you follow our YouTube page, when we have sessions like this, we post the recording. So another question, IAM, who can do what and where? Well, IAM is a really big field. So for most organizations, they have a group, they can call it any name. Most will call it IAM, all right? So identity and access management. Under that, you have the provisioning team, you have the user recertification team, you have the privileged access management team as well. Okay, I'm going to mark this as done. Where does identity and access management fall under in terms of the career path? Now, for most of the roles that you're going to do, identity and access management plays a key role. If you're going to be pen testing, you need to understand how identity and access management works, and then try and see if you can exploit any vulnerability, any existing vulnerability that would give you unauthorized access into the system. And then once you have access, you can then try to escalate your privilege to maybe become a domain controller. That way you're able to do more damage, or you're able to get access to sensitive information. So identity and access management is not a standalone. That's something we all need to understand. However, there are specific career paths for IAM. Okay. Femi and Debo, do you want to add to that?
So is the question around, what is the question here? Sorry. What does identity access?
Where does IAM fall under in terms of the career paths?
So this is a very good question, and a very knowledgeable question, right? Because identity and access management would not necessarily fall fully under cybersecurity. It will fall a little bit under core IT, right? The identity team, right? Those that provision access, those that remove access, those that make connections with access, those that create some sort of, extended access and all that. But because identity and access management also impacts cybersecurity, it touches on it. So what I have seen people do is identity and access management stands alone in between IT and cybersecurity. Well, most times reports to the head of cybersecurity because it's all about access management, right? But a lot of time they work very closely with IT. They are not necessarily the typical pen tester and all that. They actually build and maintain controls around digital identity. And it is a massive field. So you can stand alone in IAM and you would be solid, irrespective of the cybersecurity knowledge or otherwise.
Okay, so I'm just going to mark this. And then, does pen testing require a lot of coding? Well, yes. What's that? No. And then when I say coding, again, when I say coding, let me just clarify. What I mean is you should, at the minimum, be able to write, commands. At least, you want to be able to use Kali Linux. And for you to do that, you must be able to write, commands or scripts.
I don't want to scare people. Let me lighten that a little bit. Does it require a lot of coding? Maybe partially. But if you are able to do your research, Google a few things, you should be good. Yeah, I'll keep it at that. Not that deep. Thank you.
Okay, let me just clarify that a bit. So remember that when you start pen testing, there are different stages, right? So say, for example, you've done your reconnaissance. Maybe you're at the point of exploiting vulnerabilities. So first of all, you want to look at what are the low-hanging vulnerabilities you found. Let me try and exploit this and see how I can proceed from there. So you can start that way. And then when you get in, you realize that, oh, I need to do a bit more work. So the thing about pen testing is it's never, clearly or explicitly spelled out from the beginning. It's very flexible and dynamic. You should be able to go with the flow. Okay. But it's something that is doable because, of course, you use a lot of tools.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next one says, okay, we've answered this one. Is ATIP analyst related to cybersecurity?
I think ATIP is advanced threat intelligence, if that is, if I am correct, advanced threat, and of course, threat intelligence is massive in cybersecurity. If that is what you're talking about, ATIP, right? Because it seems to be what it is. Threat intelligence is gathering telemetry and information from the internet and using that intelligence to build defenses internally. It helps you proactively respond to cybersecurity. What do I mean by that? If you're working in an oil and gas company in Nigeria and you hear that Colonial Pipeline was hacked and you use the same solution as Colonial Pipeline, you will get the threat intelligence and you will implement those in maybe Chevron or Shell Nigeria, such that whatever happened in Colonial will not happen to your company. So threat intelligence is a separate field. It is technical, it is good, and it is part of cybersecurity.
Okay, thanks, Debo. And just to add to that, cybersecurity never sits alone. Practically everything in technology, you always have to think about the cybersecurity aspect as well. Okay, so our next question is security controls tester also an IS auditor? Well, it's a yes and no, because again, IT auditor, information security auditor sits on the third line of defense, while a security controls tester may sit on 1B or second line. But basically, you're testing. So it's similar, but sit on different lines of defense. Okay, Debo, Femi, do you want to add to that question? So is security controls testing?
I think I'm good with your response, Shadi.
Okay, Femi, what about you?
Yeah, I'm fine with your response. That's good.
Okay. I'm a telco and networking university student. What are some of the best network security engineering certifications for cybersecurity?
Let me take that, Shadi. At an entry level, from somebody with strong telco and networking course, I would say you start with some of the Cisco certifications that are focused on security, on network security. So I know Cisco back then used to have CCNA, but I think they have dumped that down to ICNDs. Now the ICNDs have certain things to do with security, right? So it might be a trajectory towards, Cisco, CCNP security, and maybe CCTIA security. And I don't think you should go all the way, but I would say you should start from the security fundamentals, right? Which starts within, the Cisco field. Cisco, when it comes to networking, right, it's still, you can see that is physical networking. You can still do, the Ciscos. You can also consider the AWS, security architect side of things, or the Azure security architect side of things. If you want to go more modern architecture and more modern technologies, right? So I would say you explore traditional Cisco, AWS entry level, architecture, or Azure and the Microsoft, entry levels, right? Just to get your feet wet on, security, certifications to get started. And I mean, they help you add to your profile as you go through school. So yeah, I think those are the quick ones, that come to mind.
Okay, Femi, do you want to add to that, or you're good?
I'm good, right? But of course, when you look at the networking side, you also want to look at, building your cybersecurity skills as well, right? I always recommend CISSP. I mean,
Femi, you've jumped to the highest level.
I've jumped to the highest level, right? No, I mean, this is a network security engineering student, so I want to assume that he probably understands the fundamentals of security. So that's why I'm actually recommending CISSP at this point. But of course, if you're just getting started, I think ISC2 has a certification for
certificates.
Yeah, for beginners, something like that. And of course, the CompTIA Plus is there and all that. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so in terms of certificates, there are quite a number of certificates out there. But then again, I always tell people, don't start from the toughest exam, right? Baby steps, and then, you can proceed from there. So for starters, I mean, if you're just starting, I wouldn't really recommend that for this particular person because he is already he already knows telecommunication and networking. So I agree with Debo. Start with Cisco certifications, slowly build up. And then if you want to come into cybersecurity, you have Security Plus, you have the GIAC, you have CISSP, or you can even do the cloud one. ISC Squared has, CSP as well. So next question, do you have a mentorship program or any free internship program? So right now, our mentorship program is not free. Okay, but to kickstart, your cybersecurity career, ISC Squared, have an initiative which is free. So there's this exam called Certificate in Cybersecurity. It's for entry level, beginners to cybersecurity. It gives you a coupon to write the exam for free. It also provides, a self-paced training. So you might want to explore that. Then go online, network with people within the cybersecurity space. That way, you'll be able to get, free mentorship, be able to follow industry trends. And there are also a lot of cybersecurity thought leaders. You might want to subscribe so that way you get their newsletter. Okay. Oh, someone has already even put that in. There's a new certification. Okay, fantastic. So thumbs up. What are some of the practical tools that are taught in the BICP program that can enable a student seamlessly perform well when hired after graduation? So there are a lot of tools, being used here. For example, we use Qualys. So for those that are familiar with Qualys, you use Qualys for a number of things. You use it for security compliance scans, you use it for vulnerability scans. We use ServiceNow. ServiceNow, again, is used for so many things. You use it for change management, incident management, GRC. Okay, so those are examples of tools that we use to make it very practical. And aside from the tools, also we respect to experience and hands-on knowledge. So some of the activities, some of the tools, some of the processes, all of these frameworks we've talked about so far, PCI DSS, NIST has different versions, right? So depending on what you're trying to achieve. So again, we cover all of these frameworks because those are, critical to you being able to perform seamlessly on the job. Okay, so the aim of this program is to get you job ready. Now, in North America, when you get a job, you have a probation period. When you also get a job, you want to hit the ground running. So all those job ready skills, the lingo, how to talk, the right technical terms to use, the documentation you need to do, samples of reports you're going to be auditing, all of these concepts, all of that is also covered as well. And then at the end of the program, the class is broken down into different groups to work on case studies. How do you apply the knowledge you've learned so far? That is very important. Because as either a cybersecurity specialist, maybe following any of these career pathways, you don't know what industry you might work for. You might start with consulting, or you might start with finance, and then from there move into telco or move into healthcare. So you need to make sure that you have a well-rounded understanding of the tools as well as the frameworks used across different industries. Okay, next question. I'm in the finance and insurance industry. I do not have any IT experience. Where would you advise I start from? So again, we have a program for beginners that want to move into the cybersecurity GRC space or the control testing space. So this is one area. This is one program you might want to explore. It's a 10-week program. You can visit our website. It's winfiniteconsulting.com, and you can see the different training programs we have for different levels. Okay, this has been answered. This has also been answered. It seems like we've covered all of the questions. Okay, I'm going to go into the chats. I do see a few messages there. Not sure if you've mentioned cost of training. Okay, so for both trainings, the cost is 2,000 Canadian dollars. It's 8 weeks instructor-led class and 2 weeks self-paced class. How hands-on is this training, and will we be practicing some of the tools used in the job? For sure. You can go online and read a lot of theory, but the extra value we bring is teaching you how to apply that knowledge to different case scenarios, leveraging common applications used, in North America. And I believe I had answered that question before. So guys, thanks so much for joining. Big shout out to Femi and Debo. I believe, this has been really insightful for everyone. So guys, you can reach out to, any of us via LinkedIn, or you could even reach out to me via our website or our social media page. So have a great weekend. Cheers.